So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
Hello, people. All right, as you know, this is Bible News Radio. I am your sweet and lovable host. Again, this is a song called Make My Day, and I hope you like it. It's pretty cool. So what we're going to do this hour is we're going to talk about some headlines of the day. I'm going to give you some updates about what happened over the weekend. It was a great, eventful weekend for me. What's coming up the rest of this week, and some very interesting things in the news. So if you wouldn't mind, please take a moment and share this out. I also want to let you know that
this is an afternoon snack.
I also want to let you know that that wasn't a mistake. This show is aired on Periscope as well as Facebook Live over on our Bible News Radio page, and also on YouTube. You can follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/Bible News Radio, Facebook.com/yes, Bible News Radio, and of course here on periscope.tv/Bible News Radio. I want to welcome all my friends here. Thank you guys. Mwah. Love you guys. Thank you for coming in. Don't forget, well, just don't forget stuff, you know, because then you'll be, well, forgetting stuff. Anyway, so the headline, we will be getting to that shortly, so just wait. We got a couple people we got to thank and talk about. Over the weekend, I had the blessing, and it was an immense blessing, actually, the joy of live streaming from your house, of meeting Grateful Chick herself, Larissa. And we're going to talk about her a little bit. We'll show you a picture and stuff. And also had an interview with Rick Costa from JesusDidIt.tv. And he'll be our guest tomorrow night. So looking forward to it. So please share this out, everybody. All right? And we will say hi to all of you in the chat room right now. There's Melanie, our #1 super fan. Hi, Melanie. There's Mia. Just as important, just so you know. Love everybody there. Anthony, hi. Dr. John, nice to see you. Kavan, nice to see you too. Mitchell, nice to see you. Welcome to the show. Those of you who are watching on Facebook Live during the show or after the show, make sure if you're watching during the replay, put a hashtag replay. That way I know you watched during the replay. And if you don't mind, take time to share this out. That would rock. Of course, I also have to thank my man, Bareface, for producing the show. Chapel Hill Media Production is producing Bible News Radio. So I want to thank all of you guys for doing that. And just, again, thank you for all that you do. You know, if there's one thing that I can share with you, you know, people always say, if you had a microphone and you could sit in front of the whole world and share one thing with the whole entire world, what would it be? Well, every day I sit behind a microphone on Periscope and on literally the World Wide Web. I actually have that opportunity. And the main thing that I like to share is the gospel of Jesus Christ, which, you know, is the good news that Jesus came down. He was born of a virgin. He came into the world through humanity, and he was sinless for his whole life. He took upon the sins of all mankind. And then he mounted up on that cross, the old rugged cross, after he was flogged and brutally beaten and spit on, had his beard pulled out, his hair pulled out, a crown of thorns shoved into his head. And the thorns weren't like this, people. The thorns were huge, mega, massive thorns. The Bible says that Jesus was marred so much that he didn't even look like a man. So even in Mel Gibson's movie, The Passion of the Christ, we look at that and we go, oh my gosh, that's the most horrible thing ever that I've ever witnessed. You know what? It was way worse than that. Way, way worse. I don't know about you, but I've never seen any human not look like a human because they were beaten and flogged and you know, tortured to that point, you know. But Jesus did that for us. And, you know, every day I sit here and I remember that. I do. But I also remember that not only did he die, he was buried in the grave in a rich man's tomb, which all this was prophesied about, by the way. But a couple days later, he rose from the dead, thereby conquering death. And that is what makes Jesus different than everybody else that calls themselves God or some guru that everybody in the world should follow. Jesus rose from the dead. Up from the grave he arose, a mighty victor over his foes. And that is my declaration. And that's what I would tell the world. Actually, I would say, hey, what Jesus said, come and follow me. But don't follow me, follow Jesus. Because you know what? When you do that, it changes your life. And people are like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really. I've met converted drug addicts, drug dealers, former lesbians and homosexuals, people who used to be alcoholics. You know, I've interviewed all these types of people, former Muslims that used to kill people, terrorists, stuff. They've all had an encounter with the living Jesus. Their lives have been changed. And you know what changes your life is when your sins are forgiven and you can accept that forgiveness. It's good news. It is good news. And you know what? This is the awesome thing. It's truth. You know, Jesus said in John chapter 14, verse 6, he said to Thomas, who was a doubter type guy, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by me. Or some translations say, but through me. And I go, oh my gosh, that is the most amazing thing. Jesus came in the world to save the world, to seek and save those who are lost, you know, not to bring condemnation, but to bring deliverance. And that's who he is. And that's my life's goal, my message. It doesn't matter how much people yell at me. They tell me how stupid I am, blah, 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 blah. All I know is what he's done for me, and I've served him for 30-something years now. And I've never been a day late or a dollar short of anything that I need. And I have a joy that surpasses comprehension, honestly, because there are days, I'll tell you, there are days where I'm like, really? Because this, I should not have this. But you know what? I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus. And if you are a Christian, I want to encourage you to be bold, stand up and go with God because he loves you. And that is my message. And so if you agree with me, tweet this out, people. All right, so let's go ahead now and talk about the weekend, right? The first thing that happened on the weekend was Pastor Rick Costa, who's going to be my guest tomorrow night, talking about his book, his brand new book about speaking in tongues, about the gift of tongues. Rick actually interviewed me on his show, the Jesus Did It TV network here on Periscope, and it was a long interview. It was like 2 hours, and I have to say that he did such an awesome job. Not only did he actually, well, he basically asked me questions about me and my life, questions that I actually have never answered before on air or really even talked about. And it was very cool. I mean, it was his very first interview interviewing, and he gave me this lofty introduction that I didn't deserve, but he was super gracious to me and all that. So I just want to publicly say thank you to Rick and everybody over there at Jesus Did It .tv because it was a vulnerable interview. And if you're listening to the archive of this, you guys should go over and listen to it, because if you ever really wanted to know my full testimony, I actually shared my full testimony. I actually shared the inner guts of my abuse and how that played a part in my conversion story from all that. And I don't want to go into it now because it would just take too long. But if you really want to hear the details of my testimony, it's there. And it is recorded on Periscope. And you guys should just, go check it out. And then yesterday, Sunday, Randall and I had the privilege of driving down to Nashville area. And Larissa, a.k.a. Grateful Chick, was in town. She from Texas. I can talk. And I got to meet her and Paula from Crafty Destinations. And hi Tommy and hi Liz. Nice to see you guys coming in there. And Jason, nice to see you. And Jeff, nice to see you. And I don't know if I missed anybody else. coming in, but hey, everybody else that's in there. So here on the screen, you guys, is Larissa and me. That's like my favorite picture of us. There we are, head to head, literally. And then there's Paula, and then there's Coach Dale, there's Larissa, there's me and Bareface in there. And we actually we spent almost about 2 hours together and just talked about stuff. I actually talked to Paula probably more than Larissa. But it was so cool, and it was just weird because there's this thing when you meet somebody, virtually, and it's like you've known them for a number of years now, or even a year or whatever, and it's like you have this relationship. But when you're out of the box, so to speak, and you're like, there they are, they're really real, And Larissa and I we literally got out of the car almost at the exact same time. She walked toward me, I walked toward her, and we just hugged each other, and it was I don't know, it was weird. It was like, to me, it was like we had done it before, even though we really hadn't. It was like the first time we met, and then she gave Randall a hug. I hugged Paula, and then we met Coach Dale, and we were at IHOP. We ate carbs. Sorry about that, keto people. Guilty. I had French toast. It was good. Yeah, it was super amazing. And, those of you who don't know, her husband, Bill, is really not doing very well. And she posted earlier today on her Facebook page, she told me yesterday that she wasn't going to be broadcasting the next couple of days because she's got to make sure that Bill gets to his appointments and all these different things going on. And his red blood count is really low. And so he's having to have some transfusions and stuff and all that. So we really need to pray for her and him because, she actually told me that he was really close to death at one point. So there on the graphic there is the comment there. And, she's making the best of it. She says here, I won't be broadcasting tonight, but I'll miss y'all. But the hub's red blood cells came back in low. So we've been at the hospital all day. So he could get some blood. Praying y'all have a sweet day. And then, of course, she has her notebooks and stuff there from, her crafty stuff. And I have to say that just on the commentary about giving blood. Now, I don't know about you. I actually happen to be a universal blood donor. And for years, I could not give blood because I was so anemic, I couldn't give blood. But you know what? Hey, if you guys can give blood because you're not anemic, I would encourage you to do so. Because I remember when my mom was going through cancer, she had to have numerous blood transfusions too. And sometimes there is blood shortage, So if you are a blood donor, and I have to do this myself. I have to seek out the Red Cross around here and figure out where I can donate blood because I'm no longer anemic. But, I would encourage you to do that because it's saving a life. It really is. I mean, and someday, who knows, you might need it from somebody. And thank God that there are people who are in Larissa's area that, Bill's able to get blood because somebody donated it. It doesn't just show up. It's like, whoop, poof, there's blood. I'll just go ahead and transfuse it. Nope, somebody gave it. So just want to put that plug in there. And my husband, Randall, for years and years and years and years, he gave blood like every month at least. I don't really know. You want to talk about that a minute?
Well, I gave blood just for a little while, but because of my blood type, not a universal donor, a very specific donor, but also almost a universal receiver. My blood type, AB positive, so basically, people, an AB person can get blood from anyone as long as there's not a negative Rh factor. Anyway, so AB positive blood can only go to AB positive people, which is like here in the States, I think it's like somewhere around 3% population. So anyway, so not very useful to have on the shelf as far as wide application. So they talked to me about being a platelet donor. So instead of being a whole blood donor, they just take your platelets and give you your red cells back.
Yeah, doesn't the beard look good? I love his beard.
And a centrifugal process. Anyway, so yeah, with platelets, I think you can get platelets every 56 days or something like that. So,
Yeah, Randall had quite the incident with the last time he gave, though.
yeah,
We won't go into that.
right. But
But honestly,
most experiences were good.
yeah, if you can give blood, that would be a good thing. That would be a really good thing. Also, I just want to give you guys, so we talked about Larissa and, just keep praying for her and Bill. And then we talked about Rick and how I was on his show. And tomorrow, Rick's going to be on our show talking about his book. So that's cool. You guys can come in and do that. And I know all of you will. On Wednesday, I have Dr. Alveda King coming on. I know Randall's going to put her picture up. If you don't know who she is the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King. And she is first of all, it took me about 6 months to book this interview, you guys. She, that's her on Fox News. That's a screenshot. She is one of the most vocal and brilliant women I've ever met, especially on the pro-life issue. And we have some pro-life news, unfortunately, that I'm going to have to share with you tonight. But she will be on our show for about 15 minutes, okay? She usually gives a 10-minute interview and not even on video a lot, right? So this is going to be her debut, really, on live streaming, just so you know. And I went through a lot to get this interview, so if you can be here for it on Wednesday, that would rock. I'm going to have some behind the scenes, hopefully, with her and have her on for about 15 minutes or so. They actually extended it because usually she doesn't give more than 10. So that 15 minutes will be worth your time. She is an amazing woman, and her family is amazing, as you all know. So mark your calendar for that. If you're on Facebook, I actually put it on my Facebook page to join that event, so you get a reminder on Wednesday. And I also have a guest on Friday, but I will talk about that later in the week. So I want to throw out also this week on my email newsletter, if you join my email list, not only am I giving an Amazon gift card in that every Friday, if you open up all of our email every day, you will be getting part of that code, and the full code will be given to you by Friday. You'll have the whole thing. Hi, Jordan. I want you to join my email list by going to BibleNewsRadio.com. In there today, I posted a question of the week, and here is the question. I also posted this over on Twitter as a poll question. It's pinned to my Twitter feed at Bible News Radio. And so during the show sometime, if you don't mind, go over there to my Twitter account at Bible News Radio and answer the question, either yes or no, okay? The question of the week is, should Christians use vulgarity to make their point in any circumstance? That's the question. Should Christians use vulgarity to make their point in any circumstance? And this is kind of a hot topic. I've already gotten 4 people who've responded to me privately and given me various answers. And so I want you guys to respond to that. Also join our email list so you will get more information in that too. Okay? Really appreciate that. All right. So the headline is that we brought up at the top here is has to do with tolerance. Tolerance, according to this USA Today article, it's titled "Tolerance Takes a Hit. Americans Less Accepting of LGBT People in 2017 survey says." Just so you know. What qualifies as vulgarity? Well, that's I guess that's for you to decide, but I think most people will have answers to that. Okay, go answer my poll, people. I'll have to read your comments later. We gotta get to the story. Okay, so I saw this article on USA Today, and it is based on a new report that was put out by GLAAD, titled "Accelerating Acceptance." Okay, this was actually just released last week at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And I'm just going to read the article here. It says, for the first time in 4 years, which, that's so long, Americans are less accepting of LGBT people. Remember, this is a biased written report here. It says, a survey finds a setback activists say is stunning but not unexpected after a turbulent 2017. Fewer than half of non-LGBT adults, read heterosexuals, people, 49% said they were very or somewhat comfortable around LGBT people in certain scenarios. according to the Accelerating Acceptance Report released Thursday at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. That number was down from 53% in 2016, so it dropped, what, like 4%? The survey conducted by the Harris Poll on behalf of the LGBT media advocacy group GLAAD reflects an about-face from positive momentum reflected in polls GLAAD has commissioned since 2014. We are surprised at the scale and the swiftness in the erosion of tolerance in the course of 1 year, Sarah K. Ellis, GLAAD president and CEO, told USA Today. But if you are LGBT and living in America, you are seeing this every day. It says here, in 2014, 30% of those surveyed said they were very or somewhat uncomfortable having their child placed in a class with an LGBT teacher. In 2015, that number dipped to 29%, in 2016, 28%, and now in 2017, it jumped to 31%. More people in 2017 were also uncomfortable learning a family member or their doctor was LGBT, the survey shows. By the way, here's a fun fact for you. Your sweet and lovable host. When I lived in California, my main doctor that I had for 20 years was actually a homosexual man. Just so you know, that's how intolerant and hateful I am. I actually saw a homosexual doctor for 20 years before I moved here. Anyway, this article goes on to say, the shift is unsettling fallout that began with the 2016 presidential election, Ellis said, and continued through the year with inflammatory rhetoric and policy rollbacks. The result, a permission slip for discrimination and bias that has permeated society, she said. Among issues cited by GLAAD in 2017, LGBT content was scrubbed from the White House, Department of State, and Department of Labor websites shortly after the inauguration. I remember that. I was like, yeah, woohoo! The whole LGBT page was removed from the White House page, White House website, which was awesome. Totally cool. In February, the Justice and Education Department's reverse guidance that Obama administration had issued that said Title IX protected the rights of transgender students to use facilities that match their gender identity. So that was also good news. In July, President Trump proposed a ban on transgender people from serving in the military, a challenge that was eventually dropped by the administration, which was kind of a bad thing, but it was good that he actually kind of tippy-toed into that, so that was good. It was announced last week that the Department of Health and Human Services will create a division that shields healthcare workers who refuse to treat patients such as LGBT people because of religious beliefs. Read, they actually protected people who were Christians who didn't want to do certain things that went against their conscience based on their faith or their morals. Like, we all have these rights, but just for some reason, it's like, if a Christian is protected, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, that's a horrible thing. But Donald Trump and his administration said, well, wait just a second, mister. I think we will protect those Christian and religious and Catholics and Mormons and all those people who are against, they feel, in their conscience they can't do this.
Can I jump in here?
Sure. Yeah,
there's unless there's some fringe quasi-closet religion that I don't know about, mainstream faith, Judeo-Christian ethics, none of it, there's no refusal. Oh, someone's dying. Well, I can't give them a blood transfusion because they're, non-straight. There's none of this, oh, you received a fatal injury or you broke your leg. Well, I can't set that. I can't do that. That's ridiculous. The things that would be in place that would be prohibited by religious beliefs would be treating, not medically treating, but saying someone is the opposite gender than they actually are, their biological, gender. Stacy gave an example several weeks ago about, before some, I forget what procedure it was electron beam tomography or some sort of, scanning technology. They need to know if this woman was pregnant before giving this test. They're obligated to ask that. Are you pregnant? They need to, and she was offended by the question because she was identified as male and wouldn't answer. And it's like, well,
Yeah, that was actually a friend of mine at Pickleball who works she works in the medical field as an X-ray technician. And she was telling me this story and how irritating it was because they couldn't do their job because that individual wouldn't give consent.
Yeah, so, even though they're biologically female, they needed to know that. Anyway, so when we read here in the article, it was announced last week that the Department of Health and Human Services will create a division that shields healthcare workers who refuse to treat patients, such as LGBT people, because of religious beliefs. Don't read refuse to treat. They've got a broken leg. They've got a fatal injury. They've got, whatever, even kidney stones. And then I refuse to treat you because it goes against my religious beliefs. Like I said, there could be some wacko religion out there that prohibits such things. But, yeah. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. That's just the way it was worded. It's so...
Yeah. I see Jeff came in too. Hi, Jeff. So it says here, actions at the state level, such as a Mississippi law that lets government workers and private businesses cite religious beliefs to deny services to LGBT people, are equally disconcerting, the survey noted. And there has been an increase in violence against the community, which I have a hard time really believing, actually. 52 hate-related homicides in 2017 and 86% increase over 2016. GLAAD says, and a significant uptick in reports of bias. 55% of survey respondents said they experienced discrimination because of sexual orientation or gender identity, 11 percentage points higher than 2016. What this doesn't say is who the people were who actually committed the crimes, though, against that community. There is such a high percentage incident rate of people in that community attacking their own community and or committing fake hate crimes against themselves that I'm always very highly skeptical of anything like that because we've covered so many of them over the last, 10 years at least. The findings come 1 week after another study by think tank Movement Advancement Project that shows how a prevalence of discrimination in everyday routines disrupts daily lives. For example, 34% of LGBT people who encountered bias avoided public places such as shops and restaurants. LGBT people have been under siege, while issues such as immigration and healthcare have grabbed headlines, probably because immigration and healthcare is way more important than LGBT issues, just by virtue of the percentage of the people who are affected by it. If you look at it from that standpoint, like 1 to 3% of the population LGBT versus immigration, which impacts the whole population, and healthcare, which again impacts the whole population, not just 1 to 3%. Ellis said we've been seeing this erosion happen very quietly and under the radar. Despite the lost ground, support for LGBT rights is stable. The GLAAD reports show 79% of non-LGBT Americans, in other words, heterosexuals, back equal rights for the LGBT community, the same number as 2016. See, so there's no disconnect there. That is not necessarily a disconnect. Ellis said, conceptually, we all believe in equality for everyone, but there is a misconception that LGBT people already have full rights, she said. They actually do. If they identified the way God intended them to, they would be able to see that. But anyway, humanizing LGBT people, yeah, because we don't see LGBT people as humans, all of us other people, that they don't see us as humans, brother. Anyway, people before the public and the power centers could close the gap. Yes, and that is why they released this survey, people. That's what it said. The study validates what LGBT people feel inside. I hear every day, it's not like it used to be. I'm nervous. I don't feel safe anymore. But attitudes can change by people telling their stories, she said. Yeah, and you know what stories need to be told most, in my opinion? Because that's all it is. Stories like Stephen Black, who once engaged in homosexual behavior and how it ruined his life and then how he became a Christian and he had an encounter with the living Jesus, and he changed his life forever. Now he identifies as somebody who no longer struggles with same-sex attraction, who's been married over 30 years. You know, stories like Ann Polk, you know, who actually lived as a lesbian for a number of years, or Janet Boynes, or my friend Stephen Bennett, who's now married to Irene Bennett, his wife of a number of years. And, you know, there's gazillions of stories out there, but you're not going to hear about them because the mainstream media wants to vilify people who've changed and all that. But the article goes on, it shows this chart, and I'm trying to scroll on my page, but the computer screen's stuck. Okay, wait. Can you pull up the chart there? Let's see here. Maybe. Okay, because I'm having a hard time showing it. So this bar chart on the USA Today thing, it basically breaks down what this survey said. And the dark blue is 2017, the light blue is 2016. So dark blue, having LGBTQ members at my place of worship, 24% versus 22%. So that was good that it got higher. The goal here is to see the number go up, just so you know. That's the goal. Learning a family member is LGBTQ, 30% in 2017 to 27%. So that went up. That was good. Learning my doctor is LGBTQ, 31% to 28%. And the first number again is 2017 versus 2016. Learning my child has lesson on LGBTQ history in school, 37% to 34%. So some people are starting to get smart about public education. Seeing an LGBTQ coworker's wedding picture, 27% to 25%. My child placed in a class with an LGBTQ teacher, 31% to 28%. This one, personally, for me, I would be so mad. I would do homeschooling. Seeing a same-sex couple holding hands, 31% to 29%. So people are feeling more, I will reframe it this way, and this is how you can reframe it if you choose. I think the population at large, which is largely opposed to same-sex relationships, as well as same-sex marriage, etc. I think under the Trump administration, because it's a sea change in our culture, I think it's more appropriate to say that more people have more courage and actually say, you know what, I don't approve of this. So there. Just so you know, I don't. And God doesn't either. And so you're just going to have to build a bridge and get over it and let me have my opinion and practice true tolerance as opposed to the fake tolerance of the left, which is actually a Marxist if you think about it and you know what you're looking at. Okay? There you go. That's why people love me.
Yeah, and if you were to believe all the pre-election Twitter chatter, you know,
drives me crazy.
Yeah, Trump was going to militarize the KKK and send them out to kill everybody who was non-white and non-straight, but that didn't happen. So yet, I don't anyway, I don't want to come off as, you know, dehumanizing, or I'm not.
Anybody who knows you knows that you're so not that.
Anyway, and you know what people want to do with their lives, you know, self-determination, they can, you know, that's their own business. But this, it's this political movement, it's this lobby that's looking to change normalcy for everyone else, you know, in order to, you know, not only get in step, but to celebrate, you know, the agenda is the issue. And I think you're spot on. It's not like people have suddenly changed their mind. They've just been encouraged to speak their minds. With the political climate.
Can I just say, note in the chat room over on Periscope that we're not banning anybody making rude comments. Just so you know, we're not banning you. I see them, but I'm not banning you, and I'm not calling you names. And I'm giving you your right to free speech, right? In America, even if you're in some other country, I don't care if you're in my scope, you can have your free speech, and I'm okay with that. But, you know, don't be accusatory or something, because, you know, we haven't attacked you personally. We're actually reporting the news from a homosexual website, just so you know, okay? All right, I want to get to this other story. This is a pro-life story, and Tommy, I don't know if you saw this or not, but the Portman, there was a bill that didn't pass today. It was called the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, right? I don't know if you guys put in one if you've heard of this act. Okay, it was the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, which basically said that it would restrict abortions on preborn babies after the 20-week mark. Okay, so you actually did know what that is. Well, of course, I shouldn't be surprised by that. You're probably the only one, though. Anyway, according to the Senate website here for this particular congressperson, Senator Rob Portman, Republican, Ohio, he voted to protect life by supporting the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, which restricts abortions on unborn children after the 20-week mark, the point at which scientific evidence tells us an unborn child can feel pain. The latest Marist poll found that more than 6 in 10 Americans, by a 66-33 margin, support a ban on abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Portman issued the following statement saying, "The U.S. is one of just 7 nations that allows abortions after 5 months of pregnancy. This legislation would protect unborn babies and make a strong statement that we value all life. I'm disappointed that this important legislation was blocked by Senate Democrats. While members having differing views on abortion, we should at least be able to agree that if an unborn child has reached the point where he or she can feel pain, that child's life deserves protection. The sanctity of life is fundamental, and I am committing to protecting it." And I have to say that this gentleman here has consistently voted pro-life throughout his career, and that unfortunately it was the bill didn't pass, but it was a vote of 57 to 61 or something. I don't know, I have the tweet on it. It was 51 to 46. So the Susan B. Anthony list, they tweeted out this following tweet. They said the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act receives a 51 to 46 majority, but falls short of 60 votes, which they needed to break the filibuster. So unfortunately, the poor little babies lost. And today, though, the pro-life community, they did get trending on Twitter, #TheyFeelPain. And I don't know about you, but honestly, you know, I mean, seriously, what kind of person wants babies dead? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have a really hard time understanding that. Maybe because I'm a nurturer by heart, you know, and everything. But I mean, what kind of coward, honestly? Let's just say this, you know, how it really is. Every single senator that voted against this is a big fat coward. They might not be literally fat, but in my mind, they're buttheads. They are. I mean, they're jerks. They deserve to be smacked upside their head, you know, and really, I mean, and here's the other thing. How many of them actually have grandchildren or children of their own and would have actually enjoyed watching that little baby get aborted at 20 weeks? That's like 5 months, people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's a 5-month-old baby that can live outside the womb if it was born early, right? I mean, it's so evil. It's just evil. It's evil. There you go. I said it. It's evil. And you know what? This falls on the heels, and this is the other thing. It falls on the heels of the 45th anniversary of Roe, right? Where the stupid government, again, instead of passing Janet Porter's heartbeat bill, which would have protected babies when the heartbeat is first detected at 20 weeks, what they did was they passed a bill because the stupid old National Center for the Right to Life, which is not really pro-life, really, instead they passed this bill that said, hey, you know what, go ahead, try to abort the baby, and if you fail because you're incompetent at murdering babies, and that baby survives, then you cannot try to kill him again. I mean, seriously, what the heck? And all I can say is the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. And darn well, there's people who are being bought and paid for in these movements. And, anyway, I will probably talk about this with Dr. Alveda King, Wednesday. We'll see. You never know. All right, so we got that going. Okay, we should also thank our sponsor, Arielle Ministries. Those of you who know that we have a sponsor that really does sponsor us and loves us, Arielle Ministries is that ministry. And if you want to sponsor us, please go to their website, arielle.org, ARIEL.org. For those of you who are on Spreaker and listening to the replay, go to Arielle Ministries. They have a wonderful Bible study materials there, and you can save 20% when you use the coupon code Bible News. Also, we encourage you to get the book, The Highlights of the Life of Messiah from a Jewish Perspective, particularly because not only is it a great book, you can get the full series, by the way. There's volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4, but if you get the highlighted version, you can also get the abridged version. That's what I mean. You can get the Harmony of the Gospels with it. Save 20% on that. These are great study materials, you guys. They really are. And if you like Bareface's teaching when he does Daily Disciples, he's using these books. Of course, in using the gift God gave him to teach you God's word, which is very important. And it definitely helps you to understand, the Bible. Oh, and that reminds me, I just had this memory. Yesterday, I was teaching Awana at church. My little kids were there. And I have a young lady who has grown up in the church. And has no real desire to memorize scripture because, quote, she can't remember. So I asked her, I said, do you have a favorite song? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, can you tell me the lyrics? She sat there and told me the lyrics. I said, really? I thought you didn't have a good memory. And she's like, well, okay. I said, and I pulled out a $20 bill. I said, hey, if I gave you this $20 bill, do you think you can memorize some of the scripture that we're trying to memorize here? She's like, yeah. I go, really? Because you just got to tell me you don't have a good memory, right? So my point to her was, it's what motivates you. We're all motivated by something. And I don't know about you, but I mean, money is a motivator. Let's just admit that. Nobody's lying there. But, wouldn't it be neat if just your love for God motivated you to learn more about him? It's just so you can learn more about him. And so anyway, I had another kid who asked to be on Bible News Radio. So I did a 3-minute interview with him. And later this week, I will show a clip of that. I'll try to remember to write a note so I can upload my video so you guys can see it. Because it's the cutest little thing. You're going to love this kid. He's absolutely hilarious. Put the memory verse to a tune. Yeah, I know. And see, there's actually websites out there. Seedsfamilyworship.com is actually a great place because that's what all their music is scripture. It's really, really good. So, Howard, good. Well, keep listening. I'm outspoken about a lot of stuff. You can thank my mom for that, by the way. Okay, so Arielle Ministries, also sparknaturals.com is another way that you can help support Bible News Radio. Bible News Radio is a listener and supported show. We are not a nonprofit, but we do try to, earn money different ways. So if you're an essential oil user and you want to save a little bit of money, go to sparknaturals.com, use the coupon code John316. You can save 10% on all your orders, plus including, but not limited to, sale items. It's a super good thing, and I know some of you are doing that, and I want to thank you for that because every little bit actually helps. In fact, I put in my Pillar of the Community group earlier today, we are triple streaming here. We're streaming on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Periscope. And the service that we're using right now, we're using their trial period. I found out today that if we continue to use this service, they want to charge us almost $200 a month. So what we're doing here is we're producing something of quality, but it costs money, and we don't have that budget, just so you know. I don't make that much money. We have other expenses to pay. We got internet and phone and Zoom platform meetings, and we have, the live streaming thing and stuff. So those of you who are supporters of our show, the pillars of the community, again, I want to thank you guys for that. You're not the ones I'm asking to give more money. I'm telling you my prayer request, as you all know. I want to thank you guys. But if you're somebody who benefits from this show, you listen all the time, please donate to it, because I'm in a position right now where I might have to make a decision not to do the triple live streaming yet, because we just can't afford it. I can't afford that extra money. I just can't. It's just, it's not there. So, pray about becoming a pillar and doing this. And I actually have, we have another option we're looking into that could maybe cut the price in half. We'll see. But still, even that's not really in our budget, just so you know. So just pray about it and see what God does. And go to BibleNewsRadio.com/give. And if you do, tell me, hey, you know what? I want my support to go towards this over here. And then we'll designate that and say, okay, so-and-so has donated this for us. That way we can keep doing this. Because here's the thing. The truth is, we want to be on all these platforms because it will attract more advertisers when we pitch that. And not only that, I mean, really my main focus is I want more people to hear the gospel. I have really cool people coming on the show. Roma Downey's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks, and maybe there's people who've never heard the gospel, but they remember her from Touched by an Angel, who knows, or the Bible, or what other stuff, like she has a brand new book out I'm going to be talking to her about. So we get these really top A-list guest people, but we actually want more people to know so we can share the gospel, because that's what we're really about. So so thank you all in advance for doing that, whatever it is that you do. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, should we do let's do the arson story. Okay, so this story caught my eye because, as you guys know, I wrote the persecution blog for Voice of the Martyrs for 8 years. So whenever I see churches being burnt down, my first thought is, okay, this is in Nigeria, because that's usually where it happens. In fact, this was a sorely underreported story a number of years ago. Over 700, and that is the accurate number, churches were burned down in one day in Nigeria, and the mainstream media didn't pick it up at all. I had on Emmanuel Ogebe, who is originally from Nigeria. He worked with Jubilee Campaign. He actually reported that on my show. So I actually had an eyewitness. Some of his family were actually victims of that. And this happens all the time in Nigeria. Well, over the weekend, apparently, it was reported today over on cbnnews.com that there's a California arsonist targeting places of worship in a series of fires. So this is here in California. I'm not in California anymore, thank God, but this happened in California. And just so you know, California, believe it or not, is still part of America. I had to say that, just so you know. It says here, a 25-year-old man in Southern California has been arrested, thank God, for allegedly setting a series of overnight fires and committing acts of vandalism at several different churches. Those most recent incidences involved a fire and vandalism at Resurrection Church in Boyle Heights and the Church of the Angels located in Pasadena, according to ABC 7. In addition to these incidents, officials say Christian, the irony of it all, Michael Garcia is accused of multiple other acts of intentional arson. Is there any other type of arson? I mean, and vandalism occurring at houses of worship in the city and county of Los Angeles over the last several weeks. The Church of the Angels was built in 1889 and it's considered a historical landmark. It suffered smoke and fire damage that could take weeks to repair. According to the Reverend Robert Gastel, the vandals broke off the arms of a stone angel sculpture outside the church and scrawled graffiti on it and on paving stones on the patio. They also broke a window. They used hymnals and prayer books as kindling to set the fire, which destroyed the antique carved wooden angel lectern and burnt 4 pews. Arson and vandalism targeting houses of worship is a serious crime, and we have zero tolerance for willful acts of destruction in the city of Los Angeles, said the fire chief, Ralph Terrazas. I guess that's how you say it. I don't know. Sorry, Ralph. Yeah, however you say it's probably right. And Police Chief Charlie Beck on Facebook. The destruction of a house of worship not only devastates the affected congregation, but affects the entire community. We will always investigate and prosecute the serious crime of arson to the fullest extent of the law. Despite the damage from the fire, Resurrection Church still held its Sunday Mass and set up tents outside of the building in the complex. Interestingly, they also do that in Nigeria and other places this happens. Church of the Angels also didn't let the damages stop the community from coming together for service and to help make repairs. And then, of course, there's some pictures on here. Both churches are taking donations to help with restoration. Officials say they are not investigating the fires as hate crimes, which is very interesting to me. I'd like to know a little bit more about the suspected arsonist to see if he's involved in a number of activities, which we will not wildly speculate about right now, but let's just say it wouldn't surprise me if he had some ties to ungodly things. And unfortunately, this is also not the first time this has happened in America, people. There have been a number of other church fires set all over Texas area a number of years ago. I remember covering it on the Persecution blog, and it was ridiculous, actually, how often that this stuff happens. But unless you're looking for it in the news, you don't hear about it because they don't talk about it. And there could be a tie to Islam. There could be a tie to sexual abuse or some type of thing that happened to him in the church. There could be, he could be a Satan worshiper or an angry atheist or, an agnostic or something. There's clearly something not right there that they would target a house of worship. And isn't it interesting that the churches are referred to houses of worship? Kind of weird, isn't it? All right. Speaking of that, Ben Carson, he's responded to the angry atheists who are attacking him because of the White House Bible studies that are taking place, which have been going on for a long time, by the way. So according here to CBN News, Ben Carson says to atheists, "I refuse to be intimidated. My faith helps me serve the nation better." I love Ben Carson. Not only has he been on our show twice, but he's awesome. Says here, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson, is setting the record straight about the weekly cabinet Bible study he attends. "I refuse to be intimidated by anti-religious groups into relinquishing my spirituality or religious beliefs," Carson posted on the Facebook page he shares with his wife, Candy. And then if you scroll on there, you can see there's a picture that he's holding up. It says, "I am a Christian" on it. Yeah, I like that. It's very cool. And yes, he is a Seventh-day Adventist. And that means he's still a Christian, right? Just so you know. He's responding to a lawsuit filed by the Freedom from Religion Foundation and Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, aka CREW. The groups are suing because HUD didn't waive the standard Freedom of Information Act request fee that agencies charge for time filling the request and paper used to print documents. Really? I mean, seriously? Their FOIA requests aim to find out if government time or resources are being used for the Bible study. They are fearful that a hot beverage or a bagel may be consumed at the expense of taxpayers, or that staff may be coerced to participate in religious activities against their will, Carson wrote. First of all, taxpayer funds are not used to support the ministry, he noted, and secondly, no staff are involved in the Bible study, which we have already addressed this on this show. Carson attends the weekly Bible study along with other members of President Trump's cabinet led by Ralph Drollinger, founder of Capitol Ministries, and that's Capital with an O, CAPITOL Ministries. And you can actually go to capmin.org, CAPMIN.org, and you can look at those actual Bible studies that these people in our government are participating in to see how they're being influenced. Drollinger is currently leading the group in a study of Matthew chapter 7. And if you know anything about Matthew chapter 7, in the first verse, it talks about judging. One of the principles of our nation's founding is freedom of religion. "I will not stop being a Christian while in service to this country," Carson wrote. "In fact, it's my faith that helps me serve the nation even better. The relentless attacks on the spirituality of our nation must be resisted, he continued. We are not like everyone else, which is precisely the reason that we rose so rapidly from obscurity to become the most powerful and free nation in history. Dr. Carson also reminded his followers of the history of the Cold War between the U.S. and former Soviet Union. Joseph Stalin, the Russian tyrant who said the United States could be destroyed from within by eroding three things: our patriotism, our morality, and our spirituality, he said. These things are currently under severe attack. We, the people, must decide who we are and what we stand for. And yes, we must remember as well who said this. Dr. Carson, Dr. Ben Carson. Gifted Hands is his book about his story. This man is an amazing guy. Talk about humility. You want brilliance where in leadership. This guy's brilliant beyond brilliant. He actually performed surgery on conjoined twins who were joined at the brain. And I mean, his story from poverty to the White House. I mean, think about it. Absolutely insane. And yet the angry atheist organizations out there, well, you guys didn't waive our fee. Really? Seriously? The angry atheists, all you people on the left, you need to build a bridge and get over it. And if you couldn't afford your stupid fee, go have a bake sale and raise your stupid money for it instead of being big babies like you're in wet diapers crying about stuff. I mean, it's ridiculous. What? I didn't get my Freedom of Information Act for free. Give me a break.
I have to jump in here. There's a fee for the paper and the ink to print it
Yes.
and the handling. I remember my car was once sideswiped while it was parked on the curb. And, I came out and, here's my car just kind of smashed all up. And there's a little slip on there that gives it was a police kind of slip that gives the case number. And I went there and I had to pay $25 to copy the report. And I had to wait 2 days to get it. Anyways, that's just local police department. Here's my car, the one that's damaged. I'm not looking for Freedom of Information Act. I had to pay to get a copy of the report. So how much more? You're just looking for information on somebody else, especially at a federal level. They got to account for, what's going on when. And anyway, and so they're suing because those fees weren't waived. How much is it going to cost them
For the lawsuit?
for the lawsuit?
Yeah. What? Oh my gosh.
I guarantee it's a lot more than what the cost would be to get a copy of the information.
I know. It's ridiculous. I mean, it is completely intentional, okay? I mean, angry atheists are like, how do I say this? Well, they're kind of like gnats, that's a polite way of saying it. They're like gnats, they see a ripe banana. Let's see, that's got the juices. It's coming out and the gnats are all collecting there. You keep hitting the gnats to get it away, and the next thing you know,
What?
well, they just,
They just keep coming.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. But whatever. Bygones. Okay, one last story and then we gotta go. We'll save the best for last. Not really. This isn't the best. But this is over on USA Today. It's titled Judge to Rule on Transgender Teen Who Wants to Pursue Hormone Therapy. Okay, now this is interesting. Okay, an Ohio judge. Does anything good come out of Ohio? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it does. Lots of stuff. Actually, it seems like all these stories have Ohio in them. Anyway, an Ohio judge will decide next month whether to grant full custody to the grandparents of a transgender boy so he can pursue hormone therapy, which his parents oppose. Read girl.
Right.
Just so you know, transgender boy equals girl. I know Mia's in Ohio. So's Jeff. They're in Ohio. Okay, so it says here, closing arguments in the case, which began in December in Hamilton County Juvenile Court, took place Friday. The now 17-year-old wants to transition in gender, but prosecutors say his parents deny he is transgender and have refused services from Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. Instead, one of their attorneys said Friday the parents prefer therapy to get to the underlying causes of the teen's desire to transition. A visiting judge, Sylvia Hendon, said she will issue a ruling before February 16th. You know, here's an interesting fact in case you didn't know this. Whenever somebody actually undergoes transition, quote, surgery, they're actually required to be going to a therapist in the first place. They're supposed to get examined, to get their head examined, let's just say it that way. They are, and they're supposed to, you know, have basically the medical approval that they're stable enough to do it. But the problem is this is a young person. I mean, just think about it. They're 17, which means they're not an adult yet. And even if they were technically 18, which, quote, would make them an adult, their brain is not fully developed until they're in their 20s, okay? So they're not even thinking clearly. So that's part of the problem. But anyway, this says here, a Hamilton assistant prosecutor who is representing Job and Family Services, or is it Job and Family Services? I don't know. Anyway.
I think Job and Family Services.
Job and Family Services, okay. Said the parent's stance could lead the teen to suicide. Yep. See, you see the marketing of evil here? So the parents want their child, who is a girl, to get therapy. Somehow this ended up in court, right? Okay. But because they really don't want the kid to have therapy, the court system, or the kid, that, you know, if she doesn't get what she wants, she might kill herself. And yet the parents are being made out here to be the evil ones. And yet the parents are adults with brains that are fully developed and life experience under their belt. Just so you know. That drives me crazy. It says here, this child, they're a child, they're not a teenager, teeters on the edge of suicidal ideation, Assistant Prosecutor Don Clancy told the Hendon. Job and Family Services was granted temporary custody of the teen early last year, and he was placed with his grandparents. Clancy said they accept their grandson for who he is. According to Clancy, the teen's parents spent the entire case trying to show that their child is not transgender. The nerve of those parents. A reasonable parent, he said, would never tell their own child to kill themselves because they were going to hell anyway. I'm pretty sure that these parents never said that. Yeah, right, Tommy. I mean, ugh. Clancy noted that an expert witness called by the parents testified that a small cabal of lobbyists and politicians invented the term gender dysphoria and the treatment for it. That's so true. That is true. 2 experts from Children's Hospital disputed the parents' expert, testifying that a teen suffers from gender dysphoria. This child needs as much support as he can get, he said. An attorney for the parents, Karen Brinkman, said the teen is emotionally unstable and is not equipped to make a decision about serious medical treatment. The science says a more neutral environment with continued therapy to address underlying issues is the best practice. She added that it appeared doctors with Children's Hospital's transgender clinics were doing little more than experimenting on children to further their careers or bolster their reputations. To allow hormone replacement therapy and subject this child to the social stigma of being transgender, Brinkman said, will only increase the risk of suicide in the future. And it's true. And you know what? I'm not even going to read the rest of the article. I'll tweet it out, though, so you can read it. I will say this. My eyewitness testimony, just like Luke, when he wrote the Gospel of Luke, he wrote his eyewitness testimony, was this a couple of years back when I lived in California as a marriage and family therapist. I was an intern at the time, and I had the opportunity to go to a SESCAL conference, which was a conference headed up by a lesbian psychologist who put this conference together in order to indoctrinate schools and the school leadership, counseling, teachers, etc., into promoting LGBT activism, and it was activism on campus. This was actually, you can go to CESCAL.org. It's CESCAL.org. It's the Center for Excellence in School Counseling and Leadership. I attended a conference. Chastity Bono, pretending to be Chaz Bono, was the keynote speaker. I shook her hand, as sweaty as it was, because she was having hormone replacements at that point. Stuart Milk, the nephew of Harvey Milk, was also there. I sat there for a whole weekend. I went to different what do you call it?
Workshops. Breakouts.
Yeah. And there was a guy who was very confused who transitioned to female. Then a couple of years later, he changed back to male. Then he decided he wanted to be female again. He was leading a panel. And this is what the Holy Spirit had to keep me in my seat, because I'm telling you, people, if he didn't, I would have blew my cover. But so I was sitting there, and they had this panel, this very confused professor type had this panel, and they were griping about how this kid and his parents couldn't get hormone replacement therapy, and he wasn't even a teenager. He was like 8 years old. All right. And they were bemoaning the fact that they were having a hard time finding doctors to do the surgery and to do the injections and all that, to mess up the children that claim that they were one gender and they really weren't. And everything. And here's the even more telling part, okay? The more telling part, aside from all this stuff, the indoctrination stuff I heard, was that if you know anything about human development and child development, in particular, how children are developed, then you already know that the stages of development have been documented scientifically, psychologically, etc., and all the research is there. I raised my hand, and I was in the back. I said, I just have a question. How do you guys plan on, counteracting all of the research out there that says this is how children develop, blah, 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 etc., and this can be treated, etc., blah, blah, blah. And this very confused individual said, oh, don't worry. We'll write stuff. We'll make stuff up. We'll talk about it after the workshop's over with. Just come up and see me. And I was sitting there going, you got to be kidding me. I was there by myself. I didn't even have a friend to support me. I was in this thing all by myself. And I'm like going, this poor kid, and the parent, these were parents that wanted to mess with their kid and mess them up. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And so, you know what? Praise God for these parents who are trying to protect their daughter, who's sorely confused. And it makes me wonder if she's been abused in some way. And I don't know about the grandparents and all that stuff, but let's pray that this judge does the right thing and gives the parents that they win. Because it's a lie. First of all, I'm going to tell you, in these gay activism conferences, one of the first things they talk about is how they just, there's only two choices a parent has: a living LGBT child or a dead one. True story. Me and Randall both heard that. You know what? If your son or daughter comes out and you don't accept it, well, then you know what? That child's going to die, according to the gay lobby, and it's going to be your fault. So you have to accept it. You can't get that kid help. And this, everybody, is the truth. I'm telling you that you won't hear the mainstream media. And I'm just saying, if you're a Christian parent, be a parent. If you're not a Christian parent, still be a parent. And take care of your children. Children are children, and they need parents that act like parents. Men to be men, and women who are women, who can give discipline, love, affection, instruction, the way that God intended it. And you know what? When that stuff takes place, you have healthy people who are developed, right? As Randall says, and I know he heard it from someplace, it's easier to fix a child than it is a broken adult.
Well, it's easier to build a child than to fix an adult.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so my point is, look, God made parents parents, and we all started out in diapers, people. Well, most of us started naked, I think. Yeah. Somebody needed to diaper us.
Covered in amniotic fluid.
I'm a Christian parent that supports my gay daughter with great pride. Well, good for you. I have a gay sister-in-law.
Supporting an individual is a godly thing to do.
Right.
Supporting
Christian. Gotcha.
Supporting the falsehood is not a loving thing to do. I know we're over time, but I'll try to make this quick. Transgender is not an event. It's not a transitional period. When someone identifies as transgender, that is, I'm not my biological gender. Inside, I'm somebody else, trapped inside this body. Then they get their hormone replacement to resemble the other gender. they're still not the other gender. They will forever be transgender. So you're transgender when you're just thinking about it. You're transgender after you've had all the hormone replacement and you know, growing hair or not growing hair, or you know, whatever it is, the hormones have wreaked, you know, the havoc they wreaked in your body. You're still transgender at the end of the day. So what's the difference of pre-hormone therapy or post-hormone therapy? One person never actually transitions from male to female or female to male. If they're going to identify as transgender, that's a lifelong thing. They will forever be transgender. So hormone therapy isn't a solution to being transgender. It doesn't cause transgenderness to go away, because that will always be the case. They'll never be biologically, you know, they'll never reverse their biology, not reverse, or, you know, alter their biology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Walt Heyer, who lived as a woman, he actually transitioned, to use that language. He had bottom surgery. He had his penis removed or inverted or whatever they do. And he lived as a woman for a number of years, okay? This guy became, he got connected with some Christians who started to pray for him. And eventually he became a follower of Jesus, and he transitioned back. And now he's married again. He's married to a woman, just so you know. And he has a website. Go check it out. It's called sexchangeregret.com. We've actually had Walt on our show a number of times talking about his testimony. He wrote a book called Paper Genders, which basically talks about how you're changing the gender. You're only doing it on paper. You can't do it. And here is the interesting thing, and I'll leave this with you because I know I can talk about this for a long time. When suicide is attempted, especially in the transgender community, which is not even 1% of the population, by the way, generally when suicide is attempted in that community, it's extremely violent in nature, but generally a man, even if they are identifying as a woman, they will kill themselves in the manner in which a man does. Okay? For example, they'll shoot themselves in the head, generally speaking. Now, yes, some women do kill themselves with a gun, but generally women attempt suicide with drugs. Now, there was a case not too long ago concerning Joshua Alcorn. I believe that was his name. And Joshua was a young man who thought he was a girl, and he jumped in front of a bus and got hit, ran over, and killed himself.
I think it was a semi. It was a tractor trailer.
Okay, well, it was a big vehicle,
yeah.
Either way. And even though he identified as a girl, he committed suicide the way a boy does. So, and then what happened was the whole media picked this story up. They called him Layla Alcorn. The whole gay lobby picked it up. I mean, I got such hate mail. It was unbelievable when I covered this a couple years ago. And yeah, if you do a search on Joshua Alcorn versus Layla Alcorn, you won't find many articles with Joshua. It was initially reported the right way. And then the media actually, they just did their marketing, the marketing of evil. They twisted it. They twisted the pronouns. They made it to say what they wanted to say. But the truth is out there. So sexchangeregret.com, you can learn more. I highly recommend Walt's work. He's got a lot of stuff. And his big thing is, you have to address the comorbid disorders, which are the psychological underpinning reasons of anxiety, depression, where all this stuff comes from that nobody wants to talk about in the LGBT community. If you can address that stuff, then you can get to the root, which is exactly what the parents want to do in that case. So anyway, it's a hard thing. It's not really that hard. It's just sad because the devil who comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and who is the author of confusion, don't ever forget that. This is a good biblical argument, by the way. God is not the author of confusion. God created male and female. If a person is confused about their gender, it's not God doing it, and it's not God who created it. It's the devil. And yes, he is real. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And in this community, that's high. And the marketing of evil is very real. And what we're telling you is very real. You can go research it. I give you the places you can go. Just go do it. Okay? All right. So tomorrow, Pastor Rick Costa will be our guest talking about his new book about the topic of the spiritual gift of tongues. So it should be very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to read his book between now and then, and we will have a nice, fun conversation with him. So go over to BibleNewsRadio.com, sign up for my email list. You'll get my email tomorrow. And thank you all for tuning into the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Go over to Twitter, take my poll for my question of the day. And if you want to donate to the show, we totally appreciate that too. You can do that, BibleNewsRadio.com. So, as I always say at the end of every show, be bold, stand up, and go with God, because he loves you.